Stand here, or here, or here.
Should we give you a mic?
I welcome candidates and the public and everyone who takes their time to care about education. I'm Christine Kuglin. I'm director and founder of Innovations Academy, and we are a K-8 public charter school. We have about 480 students right now, and this is our location where we've been since 2020, so it's fairly new. We are so proud to host this event and hope that people benefit, especially our children, because we, at least at Innovations Academy, are seeking leaders that understand that those that work day in and day out with children should be the ones making the decisions and having the input in what's happening in education. And we hope our leaders represent that for us as well. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to pass this to TK from the Aristotle Foundation.
Yes, it is. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Keeley-Enoy, TK. I'm with the Aristotle Foundation. Welcome. We're proud to have this event tonight. I'll tell you what's at stake. I'm going to back up here because I don't want to stand in front of them. 4 people sitting here tonight, 2 of them are going to be sitting on California's second largest school district. It's a huge responsibility. So without further ado, I am going to welcome Dr. David Miyashiro. There's a lot of things I'd love to say about Dr. Miyashiro. One of the cool things that they have at Cajon Valley, he's the superintendent of Cajon Valley. And one of the coolest things is that they do TED Ed, like TEDx talks, right? Mm-hmm. From kindergarten, they teach children to do presentations so that by the time they graduate, they can do 18-minute presentations, speeches, business plans, and everything else. That's remarkable. The environment out there is fantastic. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Miyashiro, and take it away, sir.
Thank you, TK. We're going to start with candidate opening statements and try to share the floor as much as possible. From left to right, my left to right is Shana Hazan. Shayna Hazen. Shayna Hazen.
There you go, rhymes with raisin.
Okay. And Godwin Higa representing District B. Give them a round of applause, please. And running for District C, Becca Williams and Cody Peterson. So we're going to assume that you're all duly elected board members, and one of your first challenges is to share the dais and share the time. And so my favorite coach, John Wooden, once said, discipline yourselves so nobody has to. But just in case, I'll have a 2-minute timer for our statements and questions. And if it goes off, don't rush to close. Just know that I should wrap up soon to honor my colleagues. So with that, from left to right, Shayna Hazen, would you please take 2 minutes to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, thank you for hosting us tonight. I'm Shayna Hazen, and I'm running for school board because I believe in the limitless potential of every child. As I meet with students, families, and educators and analyze district data, I see far too many kids who aren't meeting their potential, and far too many places where our district is falling short when it comes to meeting our students' academic and mental health needs. I know that with clear goals and thoughtful plans, we can do better. I'm a 4th-generation San Diego Unified grad. My experience as a nonprofit executive, former teacher, small business owner, school volunteer, early education commissioner, and the only District B candidate with a child in our schools makes me uniquely qualified to serve on the board. I've demonstrated my ability to solve challenging problems, lead diverse teams, and build consensus. I developed a school fitness program to reduce childhood obesity and make it safer to walk to school. Created the Hunger Advocacy Network to bring organizations together to reduce food insecurity, designed leadership programs to support hundreds of high schoolers, envisioned and secured millions for kindergarten readiness and achievement gap prevention projects. And as a mom, I worked with my community to improve our neighborhood school. We increased family engagement and boosted enrollment, which has been declining district-wide. I'm vice chair of California's Children and Families Commission. I chaired and serve on the city's Human Relations Commission, serve on the district advisory council and my school site council, and was president and serve on Franklin Elementary's school foundation. I'm grateful for the overwhelming support of District B voters in the primary and for endorsements from Congresswoman Jacobs, former Congresswoman Davis, Pro Tem Atkins, Supervisor Fletcher, the UT, and thousands of classroom teachers. I would be honored to earn your vote as well.
Thank you for staying on time. Very good. Okay, Godwin, take it away.
Thank you. Aloha nui loa, and that means welcome with love. There is a significant mental health crisis in our schools and nationwide. I believe this directly correlates with student achievement and safe schools. And it's not only about unsafe facilities, it's more. From recent surveys, middle school and high school students were asked if there was any adults on campus that they could go to when they felt sad or lonely. 40 to 50% of the students said no. Where are all our compassionate adults on campus? Our students, the third highest suicide rate in the United States are ages 10 to 24. And when asked why, those who survived and attempted suicide said it's a sense of hopelessness. It's heartbreaking to hear that. My name is Godwin Heeg. I'm a retired principal of 20 years in the first trauma-informed restorative justice school in San Diego. I was district teacher of the year. I'm currently a human relations commissioner, adjunct professor at Alliant University, a trauma-informed restorative justice consultant in the state of Hawaii with proven results. Schools struggle with student achievement, safety issues, and equity concerns, unacceptable suspensions and expulsions, especially with students of color, unsatisfactory graduation rates, challenges with offering advanced courses, and poor fiscal responsible leadership. And most importantly, we're not addressing the school to prison pipeline. These significant challenges must be dealt with head on, so my priority is encouraging the implementation of trauma-informed and restorative justice schools. Why? My last school, before I retired, was Cherokee Point Elementary School in Mid-City. With 0 suspensions and expulsions, we stopped bullying. 98% of the students was attending schools, and one of the highest teacher retention rates in the school district. We established an environment for learning. Thank you.
And Becca.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Becca Williams. I'm a candidate District C against my opponent, Cody Pedersen, who I met for the first time tonight. And it's been an honor and a privilege to run for this seat over the past year. My background, a little bit about it, I'm a mother of 2 young children. I'm a former classroom teacher, and I'm a founder of a very successful network of charter schools that operate in Austin, Texas. Currently serving about 2,500 students, hoping to expand our charter out to the 7,000 that we were granted out there. So I've had my hands in a little bit of the different areas of education, but unquestionably the most influential was actually being a teacher in a classroom. And I think that's a kind of invaluable experience of which I have, not years of teaching, but I can just tell you, the stuff that's going on, there's a real kind of effort on the part of parents to want to have a say in education. They feel like they've been left out. I also understand the other side too, which is being a teacher. And, 3 years ago, I would have thought that in some sense you needed to protect teachers more from parents than the other way around. And I think I bring the perspective that we can come together and get these things right. Shana gestured at the declining enrollment in schools, and I believe that's symptomatic of widespread dissatisfaction for a whole range of causes. What I really want to bring to the table as a school board member is I believe I present the most contrast here because I'm coming from a very different background than what other leaders have brought in the past, and you've kind of seen the same intentions and strategies for moving things forward. And unfortunately, those good intentions have not amounted to very much in closing the achievement gap, in bringing about better outcomes, and people are leaving because they're dissatisfied. It's not just an aging population. Meanwhile, you do have wait lists at charter schools in the district. And I bring these things not to lower morale, but we do have a problem. People are kind of voting with their feet in some of these school systems. And I believe I'm the right candidate at this time because I bring, as you can tell, a pretty calm, but also substantial voice to a lot of problems that have been plaguing the district. And that's it.
Again, you don't feel need to stop immediately, but wrap up. Thank you for honoring your colleague's time. Cody, opening statements, please.
All right, I have this unique microphone. Is this functioning? Does everyone hear me? Okay, great. Thank you very much for having us this evening. Believe it or not, this is our first opportunity to have this discussion in person. It's been a very interesting cycle. We've been at this for a year now, and this is really the first time I met Becca. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. And the facility is beautiful. This is presumably SZ bond money, which is a wonderful thing. In our district, we have escaped much of the sort of toxic conflict that's gripped LA around charters in the public schools. We've been able to avoid that, and I hope we can continue to do that. My name is Dr. Cody Pedersen. I am born and raised in the district. I was brought home. My mother's right there, Patty Pedersen. She brought me home from the hospital. Actually, my dad brought me home early from, she's never forgotten that, from University Hospital to Mesa Grad Student Apartments in the district, in University City. And I was raised in La Jolla. We grew up a block from school. I'm going to get a little choked up here because we grew up a block from La Jolla Elementary, and the teachers of La Jolla Elementary were really an extended family. We're one of these classic westward moving nuclear families, and the teachers were really a huge part of why I'm running. And that experience, I was at La Jolla Elementary, Muirlands, and then La Jolla High. I then did my bachelor's degree at University of California, Berkeley in English. I did a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, and I'm still very motivated about STEAM education and the arts education. And then I came back to do a PhD in anthropology. I worked in Highland, Peru, in indigenous communities. I worked on land reform and ethnic conflict, and I work actually with teachers intensively with families of teachers in Highland, Peru. I was there for several years in the mountains. I came back here and I did socioeconomic impact studies. We worked on fisheries management projects. We worked on Superfund sites, and we worked on some climate change projects in the South Pacific. I got involved probably 7 years ago with public education advocacy with a group called Educate for the Future, as well as the San Diego Progressive School Board Coalition. I've been emceeing and coordinating, organizing, and planning. Oh, wow, okay, that went quickly, sorry. That's me, you'll hear my ideas later.
So I'm going to modify and use stopwatch, and when it comes to time, I'll just quietly say it's close to time.
I was so coffee, I was like,
how's that, instead of the annoying alarm. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. We're going to have a few questions where candidates have equal time. They haven't seen these questions in advance, so what you're going to hear are their authentic responses. So we'll start off with a softball, and we're going to start with Cody. First question is, what is the #1 issue affecting student learning, in your opinion, today? And as a board member, what would you do to correct it?
Wow. So I serve on both I'm the secretary of both the school site council and the site governance team at my daughter's in the audience, Bardot. She's a 9-year-old in 4th grade. I serve we actually had the site governance team this morning at Torrey Pines Elementary. So I have an opportunity to really hear from teachers and administrators and principals and classifieds about their challenges. We've heard some of them already. Declining enrollment's obviously a huge problem. One of the things that is recurrent, we have an achievement gap, and it is reinforced by the learning lag that resulted from the pandemic. And I would say for a lot of teachers, that's really a core challenge. There's a lot of social and emotional challenges in terms of students just getting readapted to being in a classroom setting. We've got a lot of behavioral challenges to overcome. We're going to need more counselors, honestly, in school and school psychologists. And we will need a social and emotional component. We're very excited about the social and emotional component at Torrey Pines Elementary. I have a son as well in 1st grade. And we really, when they come home and they have these sort of citizenship experiences and behavior experience, and they get a word for behavior. But I would say we need high dosage tutoring. That means multiple times per week. It means either individual or small group. It means articulated with the existing curriculum. We need enrichment after school for at-risk students. We really need to tackle the same solutions that we need for reversing or recovering from that learning lag. They're the same solutions to attack the achievement gap overall. And we just frankly need to invest in those, both in terms of school psychologists, counselors, as well as really high dosage tutoring and really attacking those problems that we know the solutions, we just have to invest in.
Thank you, Cody. Becca, same question. In your opinion, what's the #1 thing affecting student achievement today? And as a board member, what would you do to correct it?
I think the biggest problem is our outcomes regarding literacy. And I think in the younger grades, when it doesn't happen, it's really hard to catch kids up. So the idea that you're learning to read at a certain point and then you're reading to learn afterwards is really critical. And if you don't get to that with students, you'll get what we have, which is California has the lowest literacy rate of any state. It's not just about achievement or numbers. Part of being a human being is being able to read text as an adult and to delight in reading a book. I mean, some of my happiest times are being able to read a book. And if we're not getting there, you're denying that to a lot of kids. The reasons are, a whole range. I do think, and this is where I probably present a lot of contrast with the candidates again, that sometimes classroom order in some of the younger grades, which is really hard to establish, goes a long way in helping kids a teacher be able to unpack a curriculum where kids can listen and absorb things. So to be very honest, I'm not an expert in literacy for K-3. I do realize that is one of the biggest problems, and if you don't address that, you will continue to have something that you chase and you never catch up with. And kids in high school, I mean, it just never fixes itself. So I would say literacy outcomes, we're doing a very poor job. That needs a lot of attention, and that will go a long way towards helping people become adults and people enter the workforce. Everyone needs that skill. It's not just a school skill. It's not just a career skill. It's a human skill. And if we're not delivering on that, if there is someone to blame, that's a tragedy to be an adult and to not be able to read.
Thank you, Becca. So focus on literacy. Godwin, what's the number one factor of impacting student achievement, and how would you fix it?
As I mentioned in my opening, and many times people get confused, they don't understand the most critical things that's happening in our school about how we treat students with respect. And I truly believe, and this is research-based, that if you create a condition for learning for students, they will start learning. And I have proven that in Hawaii, I've proven that at my school, that if you understand trauma-informed, meaning that kids all come to us with some sort of trauma in their lives. And if you look up ACEs.com, ACEs is Adverse Childhood Experience, is a scientific evidence-based research that was brought up and created in San Diego by the Kaiser Permanente, and it addresses the severe trauma that kids go through. And the survey also shows that all of us come to us with some sort of trauma. If a loved one passed away in your family, that's a traumatic experience. But we have so many students in our schools that we're not addressing the trauma that kids go through. And when we do address it, it's about changing the conditions of learning, creating a condition that kids want to come to school. 98% of my students came to school, and you know why? Because the teachers believed in this compassionate way of teaching. And so when that happens, kids start wanting to learn. And what's really interesting is that we had to go back and look at our lesson plans and our curriculum development, because now students are there wanting to learn. So it's really important that we look at this issue. We look at trauma-informed and restorative justice in our schools so that we can create conditions for learning and not suspend kids and get rid of kids and not understand that they come to us with a lot of struggle. And trauma does not have any boundaries. It happens in everywhere. I've been to many different settings in schools, and kids come to us with so much trauma, and we tend to neglect addressing that. So we want adults on campus to lead with compassion.
Very good, thank you. And Shayna, in your opinion, what's the one issue impacting student achievement, and how would you address it?
So I think really what I hear from Godwin and from Becca reflects sort of what I believe, which is we need to think holistically about our students. We need to think about the whole child, right? Our children are not only here to read or only here to have mental health challenges addressed. We need to think holistically about the needs of our kids. And I can tell you as a mom, I know that for my daughters to be ready to learn and to be able to really thrive at school and in life, we need to make sure they've got a good breakfast. They have access to nutrition, access to health care, great after-school programs. They play sports, they do activities, and really great, rigorous, engaging, student-centered, project-based classroom instruction. And so we have to think about all the needs of our kids, and we have to develop a holistic plan, starting with our 4-year-olds in TK, all the way to graduation, and figure out what it is we want our children to be able to do. We heard about great things happening in Cajon Valley. We heard that they're giving 18-minute presentations, and it doesn't just happen their senior year of high school. You start when they're little, and you start developing those skills. You start cultivating in them this love of learning. I imagine you're addressing trauma and adversity. And so we need to think not just about one thing, but all of the things our students need to learn, and develop a system that provides the customized learning experiences and the supports that students need. Every school is not the same. Every child is not the same. But in environments where access to nutrition or housing are challenging, or where there are other significant trauma students have experienced, we need to address those, and we need to invest in supports in higher doses in those places. We need to make sure, Cody mentioned earlier, high dosage tutoring in places where that doesn't exist. We need to do that too. So we really need to think about our children as whole people, as children, students who are on a journey, and we want to make sure they reach their full potential.
Thank you. So a whole child approach from Shayna, trauma-informed responses and conditions for Godwin, literacy as a focus for Becca, and Cody, wraparound services using resources smartly and wisely. And so if each of you were on the board and you presented each of your ideas as a priority, and then Lamont was standing here and tasked with these things, each one of your issues by itself could be a heavy lift. Together as an agenda could be a heavy lift. In my opinion, relationships, trust, and culture in a district is the vehicle to achieve all of them. If there's trust between the superintendent, the school board, the cabinet, the community, the parents, the students, and staff, you can achieve anything, like opening a school during COVID. And we saw districts thrive and districts fail based on the fabric of trust and relationships. I'm going to ask this of each of you. In your opinions, what is your assessment of trust, culture, and relationships in the San Diego Unified District as a whole? And how would you either improve, or if you believe it is strong, maintain those high levels? And we'll start with Godwin and Becca in the middle, and with Shayna and Cody on the outside. Godwin, what's your assessment of trust, culture, and relationships in the Unified School District? And how would you either reinforce or restore them with all levels of stakeholders?
Well, I truly believe in trust and relationships, and that's very important. It's not a priority because I believe that mental health issues is a priority, but it also comes down to, can we trust the district and what they do? And there are some issues that people don't trust them. And there's also about respect. And as a principal for so many years, I've experienced a lot of those type of issues, and I don't feel that the district is doing a really good job on that. I believe that teachers and staff members should be treated with respect at all times. Why do we have to get into negotiations about raises and all these different contractual type issues? But if you had trust and respect, the negotiations will be very minor, hopefully, but I think that it's very important that we look at, do we actually trust our district in their decision-making? And decision-makings that the district does is sometimes don't look at kids first. And my priority is always, all decisions should be made with the benefit of the students. I don't care about the union contracts and the union that's supporting people. I believe that all our decisions, no matter what, should not be influenced by any other situation than what is best for kids. Respect is very important to me, and I know that the district had a history of disrespecting the principals and the teachers and all that. I lived it. And so I truly believe that we have to remedy these situations to move forward. I think that we need an apology if that's the case to different parts of the district. And I do believe that we have a long way to go to bring respect and communications that way. So thank you.
Thank you for your perspective, Godwin. Becca, what is your assessment of the levels of trust between all stakeholder groups in the Unified School District, and what would you do to either maintain or restore?
Okay, so I'm going to agree and disagree with the presuppositions of the question just a little bit, because I hold that we're running for the Board of Trustees, not the Board of Friendlies. And so we're entrusted with the task of holding the superintendent accountable and making sure the budget is right. And I do think that you can have boards gone wild, and especially in corporations, and that's not a good thing. And it's also a superintendent's worst nightmare is to have boards gone wild. But the reality is, in San Diego Unified, it's not a culture of trust. It's almost like a culture of an enclosed circle of people who have thought the same way for a long time, and they work together, and they negotiate contracts in a way that excludes a large amount of skilled labor. There's not only labor that's invested in a group and a part of a club and a membership. There's people, tradesmen who work outside of that. There's teachers. And I think, I think that this district's problem is actually being enclosed on itself in a way that it's like a pseudo trust culture. It's not a good culture. It's one that's enclosed on itself to the exclusion of others, that in a way that really harms things. And I think you need to bring attention to that. So I think part of the presupposition again is true and part of it's false. You don't want a crazy board, and because you want an executive that can move things forward, and you don't want to run into problems. And I know firsthand about boards gone wild, and it's not fun. Anyway, it's the Board of Trustees, not the Board of Friendlies. So that's what I'll say.
Point well taken. Thank you. Shana, what's your assessment of levels of trust between stakeholder groups and the culture of the district, and what would you do to maintain or restore it?
Well, I think trust is really critical, and this is something that I have spoken about and written about specifically as it relates to the district. And I didn't coin this phrase, but believe it is true that change happens at the speed of trust. And I think one of the reasons we don't see change happening the way it needs to, the reason half of our kids can't read in third grade, why we have so many students who are falling behind, is because trust doesn't exist. We don't have strong relationships between district leaders and parents and educators, right, and school leaders. And when I am talking to fellow parents and to educators, I always hear, I don't know what's going on. No one asked for my input. All of these really critical stakeholders who need to have trusting relationships so that we can really right this ship and get our students on the right track feel excluded from the process, feel like they haven't been consulted or considered. And it's really problematic. The good news is we know how to build trusting cultures. We can do that. As a board, we can engage our communities. We can have forums. I intend to have open office hours. One of the things we see at board meetings is that you have parents, often, sometimes community members, educators who show up and provide public comment, and then it's just next, because there just isn't the time or space at the board meetings to engage in really meaningful or generative conversations. But those conversations need to happen. And so I intend to create the space for those conversations to get community feedback. I was telling somebody earlier, the problems our district needs to solve aren't impossible. They aren't unsolvable problems, but we're only going to solve them when we consult with our community, when we consult with the people closest to the problems, with our educators, with our students, with our parents, and look to the research for guidance. And we have to do that within a culture and an ecosystem of trust.
Exactly 2 minutes. Wow. Cody, what's your assessment of the levels of trust and relationships within stakeholder groups in the district, and what would you do to either restore or maintain them?
This is like a 10-minute question, really, honestly, because there's so many parts of this. I would say, first of all, I start from a principle of why do we have school boards in the United States? A lot of countries don't have school boards. They just have education bureaucracies. We have school boards in order to ensure that our school districts, our public education system, is responsive to the values and the interests of constituents who, frankly, are paying for that service, not just parents, but the community at large. You look at a district like ours, Subdistrict C, we have the least enrollment of any subdistrict in the district. We have about 8,000, a little over 8,000 students compared to 31,000 in Subdistrict E, so we've seen a lot of those declines in enrollment. We cannot think of these schools as merely serving one particular group. They serve the community as a whole, which means you have to have deep roots in that community. You have to have regular engagement. Frankly, I work for the board, I work for a county supervisor. I work every day with hundreds and hundreds of stakeholders, both internal, external, in the community, and constituents, and it's very difficult to move big change through. It's very difficult to monitor these organizations. But what I would say is really the core of what needs to happen is the board setting is not fundamentally a good setting for engaging your community. This is just the nature of a board meeting. I see it again and again. You can structure report backs from staff so they have options instead of up-down votes. You can allow longer or shorter public comment, but the reality is if you are not, as a school board member, as a trustee, out in your community all the time, engaging in the community, if you not have a deep familiarity with your community, you are frankly not going to give the community a sense of participating in the decision making. You can have as many people turn out to a board meeting. I've seen it at the County Board of Supervisors, I've seen it at SDUSD. They will not feel a feeling of satisfaction. The board will not adequately respond to what they're saying. That needs to be an ongoing relationship that's established and maintained. And I will just say, it's not just parents that feel that they're not being communicated to. It's teachers are probably the group that I most commonly hear from about not feeling like the district is listening to them or responding to their needs. It's our classified employees. It is really the community at large and all the players. Even principals feel oftentimes like they're not being responded to in an adequate way or communicated with. So this is a comprehensive problem, and communication and engagement is at the core of it.
Thank you all very much. I'll share my opinion on this after your responses this time. I'm going to start with Godwin, then Becca, then Cody, then Shayna. So one of the things the pandemic has seen is it's increased the role of politics and parental engagement in our schools. What is your response to this, and how should we respond to that? Start with Godwin. The role of politics and parent engagement increased during the pandemic. Rather than showing up to back to school night, for example, now they're in our boardrooms demanding what they specifically need. Some perceive this as positive, as negative. What's your response, and how should we take the opportunity?
I think that it's very important that we continue this relationship that we're starting to build in our district so that we can respond appropriately. One of the things that concerned me the most when we started returning to school, we talked about trust and relationships. One of the big things that I was really concerned about is when students come back to school or when teachers came back to school, there was a huge issue of social isolation. Social isolation is where, like a prisoner in a prison cell, we've been caught up and brought into isolation in our homes. And so when we return to school or at work, we're not addressing the social isolation problem that's occurring in our schools right now. And I'm getting calls from Hawaii about students misbehaving in school, and there's a lot of suspensions going on. And I'm telling them that we have to really look at what's happening to students and adults when they return from social isolation, and stop thinking about academics right now. Think about in a month from now, look at academics, because the students and the teachers are not ready for this. We should not be putting students back into a 6-hour chair, but get them outside and get them learning how to become more social again. But I think it's very important because of this pandemic that politics got involved, the issues in schools became very important and questionable. There were a lot of questions about what we did when we came back to our school settings. So I think it's really important to understand the mental health and the issues that adults and kids come back to, because it's a major issue right now.
Thank you. Shana, we've seen an increase in parent engagement and politics in our schools over the last few years. What are your thoughts on this?
So one of the things I know as a mom, and imagine many parents in the audience can relate to, is that there's nothing more personal or more important than your child. And when your child is struggling, it's incredibly painful for parents. And so parents often, not often, I think coming out of the pandemic, saw their children struggling, saw their children suffering, and didn't know what else to do but go show up at school board meetings because they didn't feel like they had an outlet or had a voice. And I think going back to the last question, when we talk about building trusting relationships, building a culture of ongoing feedback, sharing what's going on, and responding, right, as I talked about, meeting the holistic needs of our children, right? When we can do that, parents aren't going to be enraged. Parents aren't going to feel like they don't know where to turn. And I think showing up and protesting at a school board meeting is not necessarily the most productive or appropriate place to show your dissatisfaction. But when you don't know where else to go and you are deeply concerned about your child, I understand how that can motivate someone to do that. And frankly, I'm running because I see so many children who aren't meeting their potential. And I am, there is a fire inside of me to want to make it better. So I think we can do better. I think we need to listen to parents, listen to educators, and really build consensus about what it is we all want. I think at the end of the day, we all want children to be successful. We all want our children to thrive academically and social emotionally, and to go out into the world and be successful in their careers or in college or both, right? That's what we all want. And so it's figuring out the stuff in between about how we get them to that point of success where we need to work together and we need to negotiate, but I know we can do that.
Thank you very much. Cody, we've seen an increase in politics and parent engagement. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is not just, I staff a county supervisor, so we see a lot of community engagement. It's a major element of our work. And we've obviously seen a Synod Unified. What I would just say is my concern is not so much with the additional parents that are showing up. It's that 99.9% of parents are still not being communicated with by the district. I mean, even if 40 people turn out and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy, what a turnout, Synod Unified board meeting. Guess what? There's 95,000 parents out there that didn't show up. So I think the core of this is there's two sets of responsibilities. There's one, you have essentially a volunteer or part-time school board, which there are limits to what they can do, but their role in terms of community engagement is a high priority for why they're in that position, is to be a liaison between the communities, between families, between students and the superintendent. But there's also the role of the district itself, which has to do a much better job at communicating with our communities, with parents, with teachers. And so I would say, a lot of the stuff in board meetings, honestly, in my mind, we have the most, I'm a lecturer at UCSD, I teach in the winters, I teach a course called Politics for Environmental Change in the Anthropology Department, where I got my PhD, and I teach them about, we have the most politically polarized country in the Northern Hemisphere. It is stacked differences, and it makes things very toxic, and I don't know how we're going to move forward because it's a very serious issue, and we see that in these board meetings. If you go out into the community itself, you get much more nuanced communication with your constituents. And so I really believe in a board that one of its predominant roles as trustees, our role is to be continuously out in the community and having, sometimes it's fora, sometimes it's showing up at PB Town Council or La Jolla Town Council. Sometimes it's showing up at community events and being open, because honestly, that communication, board meetings are very difficult. They're so tightly constrained by both the Brown Act and Robert's rules that it's very hard to get genuine dialogue out of a board meeting. So I really believe you need to be proactive, especially with equity. I'm on the site council and school site governance team.
Coming up on time.
Sometimes there's one or maybe two parents in that, and that's a 400 student school. So we just really need to be very proactive.
Thank you each. If you're going to tie that together with a 30-second story. So when the pandemic started, we opened open Zoom calls for our families and parents. And after the first, oh, I'm sorry, Becca, the role of politics and parent engagement have increased. Your thoughts on this? Thank you.
I think this is a tremendous positive with some negatives in terms of, excluding a few unruly incidents, that people started to participate in a process which they had largely neglected to do. It's still not in huge numbers. And I don't think San Diego Unified ever really had the kinds of parents' revolts that you saw in other parts of the country. But I think the buy-in from parents is so important. And when parents don't feel like they have any agency over their kids' education, they kind of give up. Mm-hmm. And if you look at educational outcomes, some of the best predictors of whether or not a student's going to succeed is what does life look like in the home and how active are the parents. And one of the ways that you can give parents a buy-in to kind of encourage that kind of participation is by making them feel that they have a say and they get a choice. Ultimately, it is true that a board moves forward with decisions and stuff, so it's not like every parent gets exactly what they want, and it's not a customer kind of relationship. But the idea that they could actually change policies, it's really helpful. And I do see a movement to make these parents almost look radioactive, and as well as some of the candidates who have kind of emerged out of this parent pool that was upset during the pandemic. And I think that's really unfortunate, because there's an effort for the people in power currently. So let's just say, I get documents from the California Teachers Association that have a layout of how you would basically undermine a parent running for school board by making them look as if they're a single issue kind of person. They don't have the expertise. There's an expert class, and then there's a parent class, and they have no business being on a school board. I have a background in education, so I exempt myself from that. But there's just this real pushback against parents and their participation from an expert class that has held power for so long and really disappointed a lot of parents. And I think the parent involvement movement, we'll call it, I don't want to call it the parent revolt, but the parent involvement movement is overall a very healthy thing, needs to be civilized. But I also hold that we may be polarized, but the more you bring people together, the better you're going to have. None of it, we all here have probably pretty polarized political opinions, but if you put us actually in a physical room together and you make us talk to each other, good things happen. And I hold that kind of participation. To Cody's point, though, yes, all that can be true. The board meetings are not always the best place for that kind of dialogue. You do have to hold town halls and get some more buy-in from the community because of the Brown Act, because of the restrictions on actual dialogue. You can't dialogue at a board meeting. Mm-hmm. And so these are the errors. I put it as the second thing that I would do if I was elected as a trustee. First would be to establish a good relationship. Second would be to change that dynamic.
Thank you so much. Quick response. I think that politics and parent engagement have increased, and it's a great opportunity now that everyone's paying attention to us to actually change the system as a whole to serve the needs of the community. And so the next round of questions are more specific to programs in your district. We're going to start, if we can go just left to right, then right to left, that way I'll stay on task. We're going to start this one with Shayna and go this way. What is your opinion on advanced placement courses in high school? Should we increase them, diminish them? What role should they play?
I had the same question a few months ago and actually met with a head admissions officer at UC San Diego so that I could understand pros, cons of AP and other similar course offerings. I think there are two pieces of this question, for me at least. One is, I want to make sure our students have access to the most challenging and most rigorous learning opportunities and curricula that they need. So that's the first piece. And that needs to exist in every single school. And right now, we don't see that same rigorous offering in every school. I can tell you, we saw just over the summer at Lincoln High School that calculus, which had been on the chopping block a few years ago, again, it was, are we going to be able to have calculus again? There are other high schools where that would never be a question. Of course, we're going to have calculus. And so we need to start from setting the bar high and making sure that everyone has access to a rigorous and challenging curriculum, period. And in terms of AP, when it comes, so AP is really helpful for college admissions. A lot of universities want students to have GPAs above a 4.0. The only way to do that is to take weighted courses, AP, honors, IB courses. So there are multiple types of courses that exist within that category, and I think we should offer all of them. The other is dual enrollment community college classes. Also offer great opportunities for rigorous instruction for our students. And I am all for all of those things and think that they're certainly beneficial. To give another example, I talked about Lincoln. I'll talk about Patrick Henry High School, which is in District B. We saw last year, and I had just tons of parents reach out to me because all of a sudden honors courses were being eliminated and parents hadn't been consulted and they were frustrated and concerned. And so I think when we are making changes, we need to really understand the needs of our students, what they want, what is best for them, what parents want, what educators want, and not pull the rug out from beneath them.
Thank you, Shana. Godwin, AP courses, what is your opinion on their role and their place in the Unified School District?
So as a teacher, I taught a lot of GATE classes, and GATE classes, gifted and talented education for advanced students. And that's my career. I taught at Dingman Elementary. I became a mentor teacher for GATE education, gifted and talented education for teachers. So I trained around the district teachers to teach advanced classes in elementary and upper grades. And so I understand fully the importance of allowing students to go to their fullest potential. I don't believe in holding back any students. I even don't believe in grading the grades. I believe in looking at students understanding and getting to the mastery point. And I think grades can be very punitive at times. But I truly believe that learning about advanced classes will enhance all teachers to up their curriculum, up their lesson plans so that all students can benefit. I'll give you a great example. I was a principal at a middle school, and a 7th grader took his algebra class, and he could not go any further. He took the highest algebra class in, that 8th graders would take. And the district and the school, the teachers, would not allow him to go any further, but to take the algebra class again. And I heard that, and I said, this is ridiculous. So I worked with the parents. I contacted UC High School, and I said, what can we do to have this child continue his math classes? And so sure enough, the parent was willing to take him at a certain time of the day, drive him to UC High School, take the geometry class that he needed, and he's going to get credit when he gets to the high school for the math credit that he needs for graduation. So we did that, and I was highly criticized. I was challenged by the district, but I stuck to my guns, and I said, no, we're not going to allow students to retake the class that he already got an A on, and we're not allowing students to thrive, and that's not right in education. So I truly believe that all teachers should know the methods of teaching in
Coming up on
gifted
time.
and talented courses. And I think it benefits all of us. And I do not believe in holding any students back in any sense.
Thank you, Godwin. Becca, advanced placement courses, your opinion.
They're a very good thing, and if you're not offering them, you have a class potentially that's at a serious disadvantage for getting into certain colleges where that's a huge bonus. And we're seeing, college acceptance requirements change all over, but for the most part, if you are not offering IAP courses or if you take them away, you will have a class of students, again, that is at a very serious disadvantage for getting in the colleges they want, and no parent wants that. I think in general, the point of an AP class, in addition to earning some college credit, is to offer students to work at a faster pace. You see this, starting, for the most part, the earlier grades, you don't need to break kids up. You do need to start breaking them up for math, in my opinion, around fourth grade, and because there are different speeds of learning. And it's not about, putting anyone down. Kids are in different spots at different times all the way through high school, and you'll have a class of bored students if you don't have an outlet for them to go excel. Likewise, you will have a class of students who have no idea what's going on if it's way too fast of a pace. So you really have to offer different paces for different students, and we're all good at different things. It's not a metric of someone's self-worth or anything like that, and you will have students that excel in life far beyond, who were never close to getting in an AP course, and likewise kids who don't succeed in certain ways who did. So it's not anything about that. It's about at this point in each individual child's life, do you offer them something that's a really good fit for them, that's a good challenge and a good pace, and drawing them upward as opposed to pulling them down or just they're in way over their head. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Cody, advanced placement courses.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Sorry. Wake up there. So I am just some autobiography. I'm a product of both GATE and Seminar and AP all throughout my time in Sandy Unified. I don't know what I would have. I was bored enough, and talk about, there's a lot of research on chronic boredom being a major factor in schools and motivation. If I hadn't had those, I do not know what I would have done. I ended up being able to graduate from Berkeley a year early after my junior year because I built up so many AP courses in part. What I would say, the fundamental, and I'm a creature of, I'm a progressive, obviously, and I talk to a lot of school board members. I'm deeply involved with school board governance throughout the county. And so we have debates about this. And what I would say, my fundamental principle on this is you cannot close the achievement gap by taking the top and bringing it down. If I go to a working class family, English language learners, BIPOC family in Southern San Diego, and I say, hey, don't worry about it. We're closing the achievement gap. We're making sure that students in La Jolla or Point Loma are achieving less. They're going to look at me completely baffled. That is in no way addressing their needs for their child. So there's actually a lot of emerging best practices with regard to AP and advanced course, and those are actually reducing the bottom, getting rid of remedial courses. Getting rid of the constraints on students entering into AP courses, entering into IB, entering into honors courses. And I would say, furthermore, I really, and Shana mentioned it, I really like dual enrollment. It allows you accelerated curriculum, and it allows students who may not have ever considered going to college an opportunity to start thinking, wait a second, I'm already taking college courses, particularly in relationship on equity issues, particularly in relationship in getting our Latinx community and our Black community and our English language community into community college. There's a major drive to get dual enrollment with community college. Honestly, it's a major path forward on dual enrollment. If I'm elected, I will be a champion for dual enrollment. I know community colleges throughout the region are very excited about strengthening that relationship. And bear in mind, it used to be K through 14. We used to have those 2 additional years, and we separated. But I really think facilitating that relationship with those 2 additional years or 4 additional years is fundamental.
Thank you all very much. We're going to start with Cody on this one. Before we do that, you're doing a fabulous job, candidates. Let's give them a round of applause thus far. And we're going to start with a topic that may be very interested in those that go to school here, an amazing charter school. There's a wide variety of opinion about the role charter schools should play. Please share your thoughts on the role of charter schools, specifically in the San Diego Unified School District, and how you will support or champion or address concerns with charter schools in your district.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll reiterate what I said in the very beginning, which is, thank goodness, early on there was a decision made, particularly in relationship with our capital bond measures, to include charters on a proportionate basis. Now, this has allowed us to really avoid a lot of the conflict we've seen in other areas throughout the region. You'll see we do not have a lot of brutal, contentious fights over charters. Every once in a while, you'll have a charter up for chartering or rechartering. But by and large, we have avoided that, thank goodness. And I would love to continue working with charters and the district to make sure that we do not have that sort of relationship, because it is per se toxic and problematic. What I would say furthermore is, the reality is school boards, there was some legislation last cycle, 1505, 1507, that put some additional constraints. But by and large, there are not a lot of controls on if you have a curriculum, if you have a program and it's financially sound, there's not a lot of oversight that a board can do, and that is the law, and I certainly would continue to obey that law. I also am a supporter of Measure U. It is another capital bond measure. It would not increase taxes. It's designed to actually feather in taxes as the old S, Z, and YY decline. And that is a great opportunity to get facilities like this and charters all around. I would say the last thing, 1992 legislation envisioned charters as an incubator of new curriculum, of new instruction, of new strategies and new programs. I would love to see the district actually return to what it never fully did, and especially with math instruction and small charters. We're seeing incredible results with charters in terms of math results, and I would love to see some of those strategies they're employing adopted into San Diego Unified in alignment with the original 1992 legislation.
Thank you, Cody. Becca, what are your thoughts on charter schools, the role in San Diego Unified, and your support or concern over them?
I'm very concerned, actually, for the charters. I don't buy the talking point that there's not a contentious relationship, and I do fear that some of these charters are not going to be rechartered. That's the spirit in the wind, and statewide, there's a lot of concerns for people who are providers of charters right now, just because there's a realization that there's a long wait list at some of these charters. Meanwhile, there's a tremendous movement towards declining enrollment in a lot of the district schools, and it ends up being a fight over money and expansion. And that if you're denying genuine public interest because you are scared of declining enrollment and losing your power and having to consolidate things, which is a big mess that no one wants to deal with, that's not fair to all the people that do pay taxes and want and deserve a tuition-free public school that they really want to send their kids to. It's a monopoly on education that has to end. I'm not buying that there's not a contentious relationship in San Diego Unified. In fact, I recall, we one of the only things we participated in was an NAACP, big difference. Form, and it came up, there was an issue at one of the charters, and I distinctly remember there was almost like an impulse to go after the charter because something was wrong with it. Now, I'm not going to nail that in stone, but that is the spirit of a lot of the leadership that's in charge right now, and that's totally unfair. I would love to help open charters here. You would have a gardening of education in San Diego. You'd open things up. My desire is not to destroy the district schools by unleashing a wave of charters or something like that, because you would cause a lot of chaos and reshuffling and things like that. But this is just obviously clear to anyone who's looking at what's going on and where to send kids. And there's a lot of problems with massive expansion quickly. But hey, if you have parent interest, you have to respect that. And continuing to stomp it down, people are going to vote with their feet. They may go elsewhere entirely, and that's sad for California. We have we're spending $24,000 almost per pupil, and what are we getting for that? That's a heck of a lot of cash entrusted to districts, and time is running out. I mean, I'm not going to put an end on the clock, but it's like go or get off the bathroom.
Thank you, Becca. Godwin, lots of opinions on charter schools. What's your opinion on the role of charter schools in San Diego Unified and your support or concern for them?
Before you hear me out, I know there's a lot of charter people in the audience. Before you throw the apples at me, please hear me out, okay? My biggest question is, why are students leaving the school district to charter school and private schools? That means it gives me the idea that we're not doing a really good job in keeping our parents in the public school system, and that there are failures that's happening. And so I would question that as a board member. But I know that there's fantastic charter schools out there, and there are low-performing charter schools out there that make the really fantastic charter schools look bad. And I think that's the cause of public and school district people and unions not, feeling this. There was a bill that just passed 2 years ago in 2020. It's called AB 1505. And that brought the charter school renewal system back to the school district board members, not to the county. And in that bill, it ask us or allow the board members to go in and look at the fiscal responsibility and the student achievement gap, which is great because I think if we're going to need to hold our school district schools accountable, we also need to do the same thing with charter schools. The other thing is in 2025, all charter school teachers will have to have a teaching credential by 2025. And that's another good plus, because I know that there's fantastic charter schools out there that's doing a wonderful job, and I would support that. But I know that, like in our public school system, there are situations where they're not doing a good job. And I think that monitoring, going into the schools, I've been to a couple of charter schools last month to kind of see what's going on, to understand it and really understand the functions of charter. And I've seen some really great schools out there. But I really, truly believe that we continue to monitor. If we're going to give a charter school 7 years of licensing, I think that's important too, if you're doing a really great job. And I do think that the ones that are failing should be not given the extension or renewal.
Thank you, Godwin. Shayna?
I think that first and foremost, every student needs access to a high quality public school in their neighborhood. And if a family is not satisfied with that option, I am all for them choosing a charter school or a private school or homeschooling. Again, I think families know what is best for their children. And not every child needs the same thing. So as a parent, I have gotten very involved in my neighborhood elementary school. I saw lots of families who were opting out. And when my daughter was 3, I went down there, I got involved. I saw that there were great things happening, but there was more work to be done. And so I organized other parents, worked with educators, worked with local businesses to really strengthen our school. And we were able to significantly boost enrollment using a wonderful STEAM program, parent engagement, and the school is thriving. And I know that is not the right choice for every single family. And so I do support charter schools, traditional public schools, and everything in between. And I think, as Cody mentioned, I really like, the idea that charters were founded on, which is to be these labs, these places of innovation, to try new things, to innovate. And we, as a larger public school district, need to replicate what is working. You heard about, great things that are happening in terms of math, project-based learning. There are so many wonderful things happening at charter schools. Let's replicate those things, right? Those things shouldn't only exist in charters. So things that are working where we're actually seeing significant gains in achievement, we are seeing students who are feeling happy and excited and loving learning. Let's do more of that everywhere.
Thank you, Shayna. And I'm glad we have time for this last question that is very specific to this district. There have been lots of support, but also criticism of the $3.2 billion bond measure U on the November ballot. Please express your support or concern or opinion, starting with Shayna.
I support the new bond measure because we have hundreds of millions of dollars of deferred maintenance in our district. We have schools that are falling apart. My daughter attends a school that is nearly 100 years old, and thanks to bond money is now undergoing a whole school modernization to bring it up to 21st century standards. We are sitting here in a gorgeous new facility that is providing wonderful learning opportunities for students thanks to bond money. I think there are many places where we need bond dollars to improve facilities, to improve safety. We are living through, sadly, a period in our history with the highest rates of gun violence in schools. We need to make sure our schools are safe. We are able to improve safety with bond money. So I think it's really important. The other reason I'm supporting this bond is because it does not increase the tax burden on property owners. So we pay for bonds, we repay our bonds by using 6 cents from every $100 assessed value of property. We're already doing that. So as taxpayers, for those of you that are homeowners, you all are already paying that for our current bonds. When the current bonds sunset, this new one goes into place, and you simply continue paying it to make sure that our students have access to the best, highest quality learning environments. And I think one of the things I see is, when families are opting out of schools and we see declining enrollment, sometimes they're going to schools that are more beautiful, schools that have better facilities. And so as a district, we need to make sure we're investing in those things. And I think using this new bond is a great way to do that.
Thank you, Shana. Godwin, how are you responding to your community questions around the bond?
First off, I'm totally for the bond measure U. There's a huge laundry list of things they're going to cover, and I want to hold them, or hold myself as a board member on that. And I think some of the highlights that's really important is the keeping the schools safe. I know that a bunch of money is going to be looking at how we can improve the safety of our school facilities. Another thing was addressing the lead in water. Cherokee Point was the first school to initiate an investigation on lead poisoning in the water. I did lead poisoning events at my school where they came in, the Board of Health came in and did some lead poisoning investigation on the kids and whatnot. But then when they went into the school system's water system, where the school was the first one to initiate the investigation of that. So when I saw that they're going to address the lead poisoning in the school and all these other issues that the school have. But more importantly, there's a situation where we're trying to keep teachers and hire teachers in our school district. And one of the things that I noticed in there is creating low-cost housing for teachers in the district. I think that's fantastic. And I think that we need to address the need to attract teachers with salary raises, support in their everyday living so that they have less things to worry about. And again, with the trauma-informed and restorative justice movement, the goal of the principle is to take things off the plates of teachers, and that's what we did. Discipline was the most difficult thing for new teachers especially, in monitoring their classroom and managing their classroom. So we stopped referrals and suspensions. But more importantly, I think the support of the teachers in this bond is very important. I made some suggestions where we could use closed schools and create apartment buildings with our closed schools instead of just selling it off. I don't believe in selling off properties. So,
Thank you, Godwin. Becca, how are you responding to questions on bond measure U?
You can do a lot of amazing things with bond money. I think it's time for us to pump the brakes on the bond. bond scam, whatever you want to call it. There's just been so much bond money that hasn't delivered on what it's been promoted. So $120 million went to fixing the 200 campuses in regards to school safety. That was it. The other ones were passed under the same promise. They spent $180 million to build one campus in Barrio Logan that's serving 1,000 students. I don't care what you say about the transparency or any bond rating, those two things, those two facts undercut any narrative that these funds are being widely distributed in a way that's smart. It's time to pump the brakes on this. You can go back and get another bond. Things that I would love to see for future bond funding, I'm glad that they're adding funding for charter schools again. I want to see the trades come in. I'm tired of hearing that right now the default is only unionized labor can participate in these building projects. And so I don't believe that the taxpayer-funded bond should exist to spread jobs to a trade club. There's a lot of tradesmen who want to participate, a lot of general contractors who would want to build on this. I think we need to fix a few things and pump the brakes on all of this bond money. The idea that it's not a tax is it's first of all, no one calculates property values by the hundreds of dollars. You calculate them by the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You need to understand exactly how much this is costing for 50 years for everyone that owns a house. It also goes up every year. The rate may not go up, but guess what? Your property values go up every single year. So you're going to be paying this off for 50 years if you own a house. It affects everything. So these are just things to be aware of. The bigger problem is the accountability with the spending. It's not actually the money. I'm not opposed to it, all taxes or anything like that. You can do amazing things with school funding. My biggest problem with this is the accountability in past uses of the bond. Here's the other thing. If you have a successful business or a successful charter, you can go to the bank and they will give you corporate bonds. Valor Public Schools, the ones I'm associated, we are applying to get $140 million in bond funding. They look at your business. Are you leaking holes? What is the likelihood you would pay this back? If San Diego Unified went to go get a bond, there is no way that any bank would realistically grant this to San Diego Unified given its trajectory, its past record, and the way that things are looking for them right now. So you're asking the taxpayers to do something that no bank would ever do, and there are ways of doing that. I love projects. I love beautiful sites. I'm not against any of that. It's time to pump the brakes on the bonds coming out every couple of years.
Thank you, Becca. And Cody. How are you addressing community questions around Bond Measure U?
Yeah, I honestly could not disagree more. I actually testified at the board meeting in favor of Measure U, where we put it on the ballot. This building was built by union carpenters. It was built by union laborers. It was built by union electricians. Part of the reason why it is so well built is because it was done with a project labor. What?
Let's not engage, please.
We have a project stabilization agreement.
Thank you.
All bond money has to go through a project stabilization agreement. I've done the research. Thank you very much. I would say this. I am running to be a board member of San Diego Unified. I'm on the board of a lot of organizations and have been throughout my life. The reality is you are not just there to provide oversight. You're there to be a champion for that organization. To not support feathering in this bond money as we retire the former S and C and the other bonds, to me, as somebody who is running to be a champion of San Diego Unified, is not responsible. It's not just a question of building these things, of doing security retrofits, of providing the adequate facilities for our UTK expansion, for universal transitional kindergarten, to get classrooms that are appropriate for the curriculum and the instruction for our young children. It's not just that. We spend 89% of our general fund on teachers, on classified employees, on our police force, on administrators. If we did not have this bond money, I grew up in the battle days right after Prop 13 was implemented. It's all bungalows. It was all bungalows in my days because we did not have the money to do this, and it was a zero-sum conflict between paying teachers a salary that they could live on and improving our capital projects. We do not need more of that zero-sum conflict between capital expenditures and salaries and benefits. We have a teacher shortage. We cannot afford to shift to start spending teacher salaries on fixing leaks, on fixing football fields, on putting additional security investments in. To me, this is a fundamental question of being a steward and a champion for this district. We need this bond money Measure U. It will not raise your taxes. It will feather in as the old bonds are retired. I am a hard supporter of this. I'm a hard supporter of our project stabilization agreement and our working families in San Diego.
Coming up on time. Each of you have given your audience a clear understanding of where you stand on various issues. Great job. This is your time for closing statements, and ultimately, why should our community vote for you next month in November? And let's start with Cody.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to turn it down to passion there. It's a passionate thing for me. First of all, I really appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate finally the opportunity to meet Becca face to face and to meet and to spend time with the other candidates here, to spend time with all of you. Let me just say, first and foremost, I think all of us are really tired of us talking. I honestly, I'm in meetings. My daughter's nodding her head. I spend every day, all day on calls and meetings, and I spend 90% of my time listening. To me, a good legislator, a good public servant spends 95% of their time listening. I may talk at the end of a meeting to try to summarize what happened. I'm a secretary for the San Diego International Sister Cities Association. I'm the secretary for the site governance team at my child's school. I'm the secretary for the school site council. To me, this is about service. It's about listening. I'm sorry, I got to give my closing remarks, but honestly, I'm hungry. I'm watching each of your faces and I'm thinking, what are they thinking right now? I actually want to hear what they have to say. That's what we're doing. That's why we have trustees. That's why we don't have just administrators, to get people out in the community, listen to their community, and bringing it back to the superintendent. So what I would say is, my name is Cody Pedersen, born and raised, Dr. Cody Pedersen, born and raised here in the district, 47 years in this district. I've been parts of community organizations for at least the last decade. I deeply love San Diego Unified. I'm a product of San Diego Unified. My mom was PTA president at La Jolla Elementary back in the day. I want to connect our schools with UCSD. I want to connect our schools with the universities in the region. I want to close this achievement gap, because the reality is our haves are by and large doing very well. We have 87% at or above grade level at Torrey Pines on English language. We have 89% at or above on math. We're doing very well, but we have a major achievement gap in this community, and it is a north-south gap, it is a west-south gap, and we need to address it because it's the core. When we talk about underachieving, this is a large urban district, and we have to figure out how to make it work for everybody, because ultimately, I believe that we are in this together. That is part of the lesson of San Diego Unified. It is a vast district, but I actually like the vastness, even though it's very challenging, but it teaches us that we are in this together. We are a community, and we have to support one another, and I believe that fundamentally and deeply.
Thank you, Cody. Becca, your closing statements. Why should we vote for you?
I think, I don't know what everyone took away, but there was a huge difference in terms of opinions on the candidates and directions that things will go. And just to give a recap, I'm the one person on certain issues. There's overlap, but I present by far the most contrast with what you've seen with San Diego Unified and articulating why there might be problems with the way that things have gone. So if you like the status quo, I am not your candidate. And I am the change candidate. You don't have to agree with me on everything, but if you want to put someone in there that is going to take some risk and actually change things, that's me. And that's what I'm offering to any voter. This is an uphill battle for me to get elected. I was always behind with this. And we've had campaigns and candidates for years in San Diego Unified, very well funded to continue to replace the status quo and protect the status quo, protect the people in power, protect the way that things are, and it's a circle that's closing on itself. I want to break into that circle and plant the seeds of something new, and from the inside, dialogue with these people, point out, hey, if you're really for labor, if you're really for the working person, if you're really for all these things, it's time to look at opening it up to everyone. There's so many conversations about how this benefits everyone, but the reality is it's benefiting a few. And I'm not afraid to call it out and show why you could do things differently that are in line with your heart and your values and everything. And it's going to look a little different, but you might be happy with something else. And that's the pledge that I offer to voters to vote for change and to vote for someone with a very different approach and philosophy and ideas, and no allegiance to any one particular organization that's been supporting me. And that's it. Becca Williams.
Thank you, Becca. Godwin, why should we vote for you?
Thank you. Experience matters. The CEO of a company is like a principal at a school. We're responsible for the overall success of the organization or school, including the vision, mission, comprehensive strategies, develop strategic objectives, oversee programs, quality, a financially responsible operation and facility manager, a human resource manager, community and relations liaison, and grant writer. For 20 years, I was accountable for and efficiently managed secondary and elementary schools in our district. As a trauma-informed restorative justice consultant, I have successfully proven results in graduation rates, lowered suspensions, increased teacher retentions to 50% in the most challenging school district in Hawaii. This would only lead to increased student achievements in school, and we could do that here. We must stop, we must create, and we must increase. We must stop punitive policies and procedures that directly impact students, suspensions, the damaged grading system, the public humiliations of students by adults, like staging. We must create a positive learning environment to allow students to thrive. Evidence-based research states that focusing on a safe and compassionate environment before focusing on academics is essential to students to reach their fullest potential. There are proven results. Cherokee Point Elementary. To enrich our schools, we must increase student voice and promote active parent participation in schools as partners, not adversaries. I'm confident that I could lead the district and work collaboratively with board members and bargaining units to utilize my endeavors and my wealth of expertise. I will be a strong voice of reason, the voice of the voiceless. I will be able to challenge questionable directive, investigate and find solutions to challenges in our district. Vote for experience and a candidate who has consistently put students first. Thank you.
Thank you, Godwin. And Shana, you have the last word this evening.
Thank you again for having all of us. I've enjoyed being here in person, hearing each of our perspectives, and really just grateful that you are here and would love for it to be a dialogue, but alas. Again, I'm Shana Hazen. I believe in the limitless potential of every child and have the leadership experience and insight as a parent to make the impactful decisions our district needs now. Our school board has no members with kids in our schools. As a mom, I'll listen to parents and address their needs. I've dedicated my career to strengthening our community, first as a teacher, then developing a school fitness program, leadership programs for high schoolers, and a kindergarten readiness program. I spent years as a nonprofit executive where I managed large teams and budgets and raised millions for positive parenting programs, food assistance, and homeless services. I'm vice chair of California's Children and Families Commission, where I shape policy and invest millions to provide trauma-informed early care and education for our youngest children. I chaired and serve on San Diego's Human Relations Commission and was president and serve on Franklin Elementary School's Foundation and their school site council. I believe in the life-changing power of education. But today, half our students aren't meeting grade level standards, and COVID has exacerbated achievement gaps and left students reeling with mental health issues. Despite these challenges, I'm optimistic about what we can achieve with clear goals and thoughtful plans centered around students. We must use meaningful data and research-based practice to guide our investments, develop success metrics, and implement systems of accountability. In addition to excellent classroom instruction that includes the arts and providing safe, nurturing school environments, we must offer services that extend beyond the classroom with access to mental health care, tutoring and after-school learning, and college and career development. I am proud to be endorsed by elected leaders across our communities, by the UT, by our district's teachers, and would be grateful to have your support as well. Thank you.
Shana Hazen, Godwin Higa, Becca Williams, Cody Peterson. How about a round of applause for our candidates? And before I hand it back to TK, I'll just say that as I reflect on the 10 years of progress in Cajon Valley, it's only possible because of the amazing board that our community has elected. Your role is pivotal, and thank you for volunteering to represent your community. The future is bright in San Diego Unified. Thank you. TK?
Hey, don't get up yet. Don't get up yet. Guys, how about a round of applause for everyone? Dr. Miyashiro, fantastic moderator, Shana Godwin, Becca, Cody. Listen, we're the Aristotle Foundation. We put things like this on. Stephen and I go back. We helped to bring term limits to San Diego Unified. We helped to bring district-only elections. This is the very first one in San Diego Unified history. That means District B residents are going to pick and choose one of these people right here to be their District B representative, and likewise District C, think C for Coastal, Becca or Cody. So it's Cody Pedersen, Becca Williams, District C, Godwin Higa, Shana Hazen, District B. We're the Aristotle Foundation. We'd love your support. In the back, you can see that handsome guy that kind of looks like Santa. I love you, man. You guys, thank you for coming out. We have another forum coming up, and we think that there's going to also be one with BayPAC, maybe at a location in October. Look for our posting either on our website, thearistotlefoundation.org, or go to our Facebook site, The Aristotle Foundation. Again, thank you very much to the candidates for coming out tonight, and Dr. Miyashiro, and all of you. Have a great night. Good night. And thank you, Christine and Innovation.